Hey people, Fernando doing another video here for the Modern Survivalist, and in this video I'm going to be going through the contents that you should have in your emergency disaster preparedness bag. Now there's a number of videos covering the same thing over and over. The thing is, most of the ones I've seen just lack in things that kind of surprise you. Now I'm not reinventing the wheel here. Most of what you'll see here is covered in different specialized websites such as ready.gov, you know, the official FEMA website, or Red Cross usually has somewhat of a similar content. Red Cross Canada, US. I check on the Spanish ones as well, that sometimes have, you know, a little bit of a difference here and there, but they basically cover the same essentials. Now many of the videos I see online of people that consider themselves experts on these things, which is kind of laughable, either lack on essentials that are extremely important to have. I've seen so many lists and videos of people that didn't even have water because they had a water filter. Having a water filter is not the same thing as having actual water. Doesn't matter if it's like a cheap store-bought bottle like that one, or a nicer metal one, or some of the Nalgene ones that they have. Doesn't matter. You still have to have water in your survival emergency kit. It's not a matter of, oh, I have a water tablet and I'm going to be going to no, that's not how it's done. There's a reason for this. There's a reason why they make these lists, and even though they can be improved, and I'm going to be mentioning the things that I think they're lacking, the essentials are there for a reason. It's not about going to the nearest lake and river and filtering water, purifying. It's about washing your face when it's bloody or full of dust, debris after a structure collapse, after a terrorist attack, after an earthquake, fire. You have ash, dust in your face. You have to clean your face. You have to take a couple sips of water because you're not able to breathe, because your pipes are all full of dust on the inside and it's impossible for you to breathe. You have your mask because of this same reason. So there's a reason for this. There's a reason why these lists pretty much have the same thing. And when I see some of these guys that consider themselves expert that lack some of these essentials, or, you know, there was a guy that said, I don't even have a bug-out bag or an emergency bag because I'm not planning on going anywhere because family, like as if it was like Fast or Furious. Dude, that's not it. You're not leaving just because you're bored and you have nothing else to do. You're leaving because staying means you're dying. That's the reason for having this sort of stuff. But, you know, I'm not asking much of people. At the very least, I would ask that someone that wants to do a video like this, at the very least, go check the essentials of what you would have in these kits. I'm not asking for more than that. I'm not asking for several years of experience in this field or in preparedness. You know, but at the very least, don't be a damn lazy bastard and just throw together a list that's lacking the essentials that will probably get someone killed. Having said all that, let's get to it. Most of it, again, ready.gov, Red Cross from different countries, you will see kind of the same thing. The first thing you want to have is, of course, an actual bag for this stuff. And you could go with a more militaristic looking bag. There's very expensive ones, very fancy ones. I like the idea of keeping it simple. Something like this one. This is a Wenger bag. I have a couple of these actually. They're quite solid. Test your bag, know how well it's going to be staying put together. Sometimes you're surprised because bags, the first day you take it to a day hike, they start falling apart. That's no good. So something like this, black, it's not looking very, you know, that it's not that eye-catching, and that's what you want. Not very big either. You don't want to have a super heavy bag. Usually 10% of your body weight is the maximum. I would say keep that around 5%. It's a bit more realistic. You want to be mobile if you have to leave. Make sure it's comfortable, make sure it's sturdy enough. A couple of things, you know, having a whistle on the outside, no, it's not a rape whistle, it's a signaling device. So that's to make people aware that you're there. Maybe you're caught under a structure, maybe you're trapped somewhere, maybe you're, you know, hanging from a branch or a tree when there's a big flood or whatever. Or a kid that has this bag, got lost, he's gonna be signaling with this. And in general, you don't want to have a bag full of crap hanging around. Again, stuff I've seen in a number of videos, and that's just stupid. You don't want to have stuff that you're going to be dropping. Any experienced backpacker will avoid having crap hanging from their backpack. I mean, I've seen some that looked very, you know, experienced and had crap hanging all over them. In general, they want to have something very streamlined that's not going to be catching on stuff. Especially for an emergency bag, you don't want this getting caught on a branch or on a collapsed structure, a piece of rebar or whatever sticking out of a wall. You don't want that. You don't need that. You need something that is mobile and quick for you. You have a pocket here where I would have that bag, one of those, that bottle, the metal bottle, I'd keep it right here so as to have quick access for washing your face. It's not about drinking the water. It's about washing your face from dust, debris, ash, whatever is going on, cleaning blood from your face, that sort of thing is probably why you want to have one of those bottles quick access to. Then, as you see, there's just one of these little family radios. These are okay. You don't need the Baofangs. They're great. Baofeng, the UV5Rs, and Yaesu, all of those are fantastic. This is simple and it works. I'm back home from trying one of these out. Not this one, another model that I just got. 2 kilometers, very decent. If you know what you're doing, if you know how to use it, these have very good range. And for most of the typical emergencies that you're likely to be caught in, it's about having this as to communicate nearby with people, with your family. Having a flashlight also. This may be needed in the middle of the night, so you want to have the flashlight easily accessible on the outside. At least one of them, that's kind of a good idea. Okay. Other than that, keep in mind, different pockets you're going to be organizing depending on the priority. Your medical stuff, your first aid stuff, tourniquet, that sort of thing, on these exterior pockets so as to have quick access to those during an emergency. Same for paracord. I think that's a good idea to have in these outside pockets. If someone is falling, if someone is being carried away by a current, anything going on that you need to secure someone, or someone that's in trouble, quick access to that cordage. It's 550 paracord. It's not for climbing, but you can definitely help someone out if he needs help with that type of cordage. If it's kept properly, you know how to do the right notch for that sort of stuff. That's a pretty huge aid if you ever need it, and it's sometimes not mentioned in these lists, so as to have good cordage. So what is it that you're mentioning here? Well, first of all, you see water. Water is key. Many of these kits have either no water whatsoever at all, or just have insufficient amounts of water. Just go with a bottle. Those, make sure they're not the kind that's going to be degrading and leaking. It's going to be depending on what plastic it's made of. Try it out, make sure, and check it often. If not, go with something a little bit more secure, like these Nalgene bottles. These are very tough. These are bomb-proof. Of course, metal would be another good way to go. But if you're putting together a simple kit, get one and give it a try, see how well it goes. I've had experience with those brand. Those are okay years later, not leaking, so I feel confident about them. But water is crucial. Extra cell phone battery or charger. You could go with something that's a bit more complete than just having the charger alone. I have that box that you see there, the brown one underneath. That one has a big solar panel with the cables, with the charger, and that allows me to basically charge all the electronics as if it was right to the wall. It's just very efficient. You can go with something a bit smaller, and some of these smaller ones, this one that I got a few years ago, actually was sent to me, it's quite good. You have different models. Try them out and know what you can get out of them or not. Sometimes you overestimate their capabilities. Better to make sure, okay? So we go on, battery powered hand crank radio. And yes, a spare cell phone. Even if you have your main cell phone, a second one, a spare one, just in case, also a good idea. Flashlight and extra batteries, of course. Flashlight, I have a couple flashlights over there, headlamps with their batteries, the one that's in the bag, and that hand crank radio has a couple flashlights, has a flashlight and a lamp itself, and its radio, and it has a little solar panel, so yeah, that's quite nice. First aid kit. You have a smaller first aid kit right there, and that that plastic container has Celox and an Israeli emergency gauze. Besides that, I have a tourniquet. The tourniquet's going to be right there. These are going to be on the exterior pockets, quick access to that stuff. Whistle, you saw it in the bag. For signaling, dust mask. Well, get yourself your N95s or N99. Those are FFP3, would be similar to N99. Those are 3M, and they're the collapsible styles that, at least for us in my family, those fit most people very well. Of course, now with everything going on, there's a lot of politics involved, but in your bag, you want to have those, because anything that compromises your ability to breathe, you want to have that taken care of, okay? Moving on, improvising shelter, that sort of thing, it's usually overestimated or exaggerated how much you're going to be sheltering, building shelters in nature. Just have something so as to have a tarp. That poncho is big enough so as to work as a tarp. That bag there, it's one of these emergency sleeping bags, kind of like those emergency blankets. It can be opened up nicely or used as a sleeping bag. Work gloves, a set of spare clothes in that vacuum sealed bag. Vacuum sealing it makes it a lot flatter, nicer, so as to keep in your bags. Hygiene products, wet towels, and feminine hygiene stuff. That's the kind of thing you definitely want to have, especially in your family if it's needed. Toilet paper, all of this stuff kept in its own bag so as to protect it from humidity, water. Imagine if this is being used in the middle of a flood. Everything is wet and it's contaminated as well. You don't want to have any of that going on. Duct tape, flat roll over there. Emergency. No, not emergency, just a multi-tool and sunscreen. That's pretty much a big deal here where I am. If it was more of a cold weather region, then maybe a lot of this stuff would be cold weather clothing, so as to protect you from that. Moving on, working gloves, work gloves, those are good to have in case you have to move around anything, and something to start fire. 3 methods of fire starting: matches, fire steel, and lighter. That's going to be covering those needs. And there's a bit of Hamado paper as tinder, and a few water purification tablets, and a water filter right here. In terms of food, Energy 5. I've seen so many kids with crappy, stupid food that just deteriorates very fast, or it just goes out of, it expires very quickly. Get something that's intended for this sort of thing. These are emergency food rations. They last for 20 years each, and each one of these has 2,300 kilocalories. That's enough for a person for a day, each pack. You could have like half of it, and most people will have more than enough body fat so as to go for a couple of weeks. So you're not going to be starving to death. Water is always more of a priority, but a bit of food definitely helps. There's a key chain over there with a tiny flashlight that's going to be accessible in some of those exterior pockets, and there's one of those water and gas keys, one of those keys that have the utility type of keys used sometimes by utility workers in cities and towns. That can be very handy, and I have found that's usually not included in many of these lists. Now, talking about realistic survival stuff, are you going to be needing a rifle, a shotgun, some kind of firearm? It may well be the case or not. I would just have it separate from your emergency bag. If you need your battle vest or your battle bag or whatever it is, it is... This is where I could spend a couple hours talking about how realistic that is or not. If it's home defense, absolutely. Now, are you going to be bugging out with your gun, shooting it? Most likely not. Now, here is where I find that there's something that's very important. It's not mentioned often enough, which is your VIP bag, your important papers bag, the kind of thing you would grab if you have to get out of there and everything is going to hell. That's your Jason Bourne 007 type of bag. Realistically, in that bag you would have important documents, important papers, a lot of cash, and a firearm. And most likely the firearm is something that you're not going to be using. It's more of a gun that you're going to be discarding before you jump on a plane or a boat or whatever the hell is getting you out of there. A lot of cash, guys. You want to have enough money so as to buy plane tickets for all of your family members, and more than enough money so as to make it for a few weeks, a few months in wherever part of the world you end up in. Now, this may sound like far-fetched and so on. I mean, I've done this myself because, life was very, very bad where I was back in the day in Argentina, and that choice had to be made. And this may be something you may have to decide yourself eventually. It may be something that you have a few months to decide, a few years to decide, or just a few days, depending on how things are rolling where you are. If you're in Afghanistan, for example, now it's a little bit too damn late. Now, a few months ago, you could have made that call. You could have made that decision of, I'm only going to be taking that little bag with the money, maybe even the gun, last resort self-defense tool. If you're trying to get out of there, sure, why not? But realistically, the gun's going to be staying behind when you board some of these planes if they're checking, or maybe you're going to be losing once you arrive to wherever it is that you're going. So the gun is something likely to end up, but your passport, cash, that is key. That is essential. And in many of these cases, look, Afghanistan, leaving South Africa, leaving some of the problematic regions in South America, like I had to do, and some people in Venezuela ended up doing themselves. And this is life. This is how it goes. People in Ukraine, I mean, these are things, if you're in eastern Ukraine and Russians are invading, are you going to be shooting it out with the Russians? Probably not. You want to keep your family safe. You're not going to be doing something that's stupid. So that is something very important. I often see that these lists mention having a multi-tool or a Swiss Army knife, and not specifically like a survival knife. I think that a knife is something that should be in your survival kit. That's the way I see it. This is the one I designed for Aitor. Folks usually ask about it. Yes, it's available in Aitor's website. My own survival knife, the Aitor FERFAL knife, which is pretty cool. Now, yeah, you can buy it. I'll leave the link below as always, and there's a discount code if you want to use it. Now, this is not the only way you have to go. You have a bunch of options. One of the ones that I like a lot is this one I talked about before. Hardware Store Basic Stanley Knife. This is a sharp damn thing, and it's very good. Even as an improvised weapon, this is quite decent. It's not that different from a Mora, and it costs like $3 or $4. So if you want to make like a more affordable bag or a lighter bag, you know, go with something like this. Glock makes fantastic knives as well, and they're cheap. You could go with one of their knives as a utility, tactical, general purpose knife. You know, these are great as well. One of the things, again, you don't see it mentioned nearly as much, and you definitely want to consider is having some sort of tool, some sort of pry bar, some sort of tool for breaking stuff down, gaining access, getting through walls, windows, doors. You have one of these, you're going to be able to do that with, you know, enough time. This is pretty cool. This is a wrecking wrench, I think it's called, or yeah, anything. Anyway, you have the hammer, you have the wrench, you have the prying nail puller, and I would add a fifth function, which is improvised weapon. This is particularly important if you happen to live in an area where earthquakes or, you know, fires, anything that, or even if you live in a main metropolitan area where there's a possibility of an explosion, of a terrorist attack, of war, anything that, even a flood may collapse a structure in a village, like we've seen in Germany during these past months. So something so as to gain access, break down walls, windows, doors. You know, maybe if that's something you're more concerned about, get yourself a proper, bigger pry bar or crowbar, something like this. This would be what I'd look at if I live in an area that's prone to earthquakes, or I see that as a concern that I have specifically. If not, something a little bit smaller may be enough. You know, this is quite light, and you can take it around with you. This is a Gorilla Bar, the name, yeah. This one is quite decent. I like this other one a lot. This is pretty good, but no complaints here. Anyway, this is basically what I see and what I believe you should have in your emergency bag. A lot of these videos don't include any of that, or they just focus on guns and stuff. Look, be realistic. Keep it real. A tourniquet may end up saving your life. You know, CE locks may end up saving your life. Those masks, which today politically seem to be of a certain affiliation or another, when you cannot breathe, that thing may make a big difference. And your radio may allow you to listen and keep updated in terms of where am I evacuating, where should I be going, okay? Those gloves may help you remove rocks, debris, and maybe save a loved one along with a pry bar. This is realistic stuff, guys, and unfortunately it's not as common as it should be. Folks, I'll leave the links below for all of this stuff right there. Same for my book. If you don't have the knowledge, then this is going to be of little use. Street Survival Skills is my latest book, and it's kind of geared towards this sort of thing. So link for all of that, and link for some of this stuff in Amazon right there below. See you on the next video. Have a great day. Take care.